Welcome, Rich Klein. We're going to ramble about the National this year as well as past years. We've had a lot of experience, and this episode will be released with the National going. Rich, you're not going to be there, which is a disappointment, not just to you, but to all your friends. Thank you, sponsors: Topps Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins and Scott Auctions, Mike's Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So, Rich, let's go back and forth, and you can make a point or ask a question, and we'll fill up the time talking about this great hobby and the National being the showcase event.
And this is nobody's fault. But one of the issues I have nowadays at going to the National is not being made of money and the hotel rooms being so out of sight that it's absolutely amazing. Our mutual friend, Brad Askew, had a room reserved for me for as long as he could hold it. And it was walking distance, one of the really good hotels for the National. And it was $480 a night for the National, which I believe is double what it was just 2 or 3 years ago. And
might be double what it was 6 months ago.
Yeah, 6 months ago, yes. And they know they can charge maximum dollars. And I know, for example, and our friends at the Dallas Card Show, Kyle Robertson's team also has no control over this, but we can drive. We can get to the Dallas Card Show pretty easily. I can assure you the Marriott Hotel gooses up the price immeasurably for the Dallas Card Show. To me, it's a side detriment of the explosion of the hobby, where we've goosed up the hobby so much, and it's a wonderful hobby and still affordable for us at the shows. I go to the Dallas Card Show, I buy great stuff, and I don't think I pay more than, even with the discount, 75 cents a card.
Yeah, but if that's on top of $400 for a hotel room, or sometimes they force you to get more than one night.
It used to be 10 years ago, it was $100 a night for the Marriott just by where the train station was. I didn't mind the walk in the morning. It's a nice walk. $100 a night is something affordable. And then you buy the cards, and if you do well enough buying cards, your trip ends up getting paid for, not on the spot, but getting through. When you're at $480 a night for a hotel or $300 nearby, you have to be basically flipping at the show, or knowing you've got an immediate outlet to do something, or understand you can't stay by the hotel and you've got to take Uber or Lyft or have a car and just drive to the hotel. You drive to the show every day. And I'm almost a little concerned that we're pricing people out. Chicago, thankfully, has a big enough collector base. You'll never truly price everybody out of going to the National, because the collector base is close enough where they can figure it out. And I know the National does a great job of getting underprivileged kids in. They do a good job getting kids in. But are we as a hobby pricing ourselves out?
The simplistic approach would be to say, hey, hotels that are going to be operating at capacity, lower your prices. That's anti-capitalistic. And even Kyle, with the influence he has, if he were to tell the Marriott there, look, if you don't lower your prices, I'm going to look elsewhere. Even that doesn't work, because if they chop the Waters Creek Marriott in half, yes, it would fill up, but all the others are not going to lower. And you're still going to need more than just that one hotel, because it's amazing how they all figure out, hey, there's a big show in town. They're not going to lower their prices. So to me, the hope is, and same thing in Dallas and Chicago, it's Airbnb, VRBO kind of things, where if they'll do 2 or 3 day rentals for a 6-bedroom house where you can divide by 6 or 12 or something and lower the price that way. Masters golf tournament in Augusta is outrageous for people renting out their houses. So even that market learns when they have these regular events.
Yeah, if you really wanted to do it, you get a reasonably priced place near a train station. The train is very safe.
Mass transit, any kind of mass transit.
I've been on the train that goes to the Donald Edward Stevens, so I can speak from experience on that.
Okay.
It's perfectly fine. You get on the train, you get to the show. You'll do this basically during daylight, so you're safe that way too. And then, okay, so you don't stay late. All right, you'll see enough people at the show, it's okay. That's how that would be if I truly wanted to work it out. That's how I would go.
But even
nowadays.
that, you and I both are not big trade night guys after a really long day at the show, but that throws a monkey wrench into that too. If you're lugging cards back and forth, or you purchase some cards going on the train or the mass transit, it becomes a 10 to 6 kind of thing. The advice I can give is that if you know you're going to go to the national, and I'm speaking to everybody, not just you, but it's a super high priority for me to get the hotel locked down immediately as soon as they open it up, because that's the lowest it'll ever be. And so I make that my priority. And then I do airfare, especially with Chicago, because there's so many flights from Dallas.
At this point in my life, we're very blessed. We have the Dallas Card Show 6 times a year. And I know the dealers I see now, and I basically can do the Dallas Card Show in 2 days for all practical purposes.
Okay, you've been to 30 nationals, or
I've been to the mid 30s. I lost count.
Which one of those, and not when you went necessarily with the company paying, which of those nationals, if you look back, adjusting for the time value of money, did it with the hotels? Was it the Anaheim ones where there are tons of hotels around the Disney?
There are about 4 or 5 areas that we've been to the national that I consider really good as an overall national experience. Anaheim, because there's so many hotels. St. Louis, where there's enough hotels nearby. Atlanta, there's enough hotels, except it's very hot. Chicago, obviously, and Baltimore. Baltimore is a little too small now to host the national, but the Baltimore area was great for the national. Now, I miss the days, like in '89, which was, I think, the last year I was able to do this. Actually, '90, I walked the small distance of the show, but there weren't quite enough hotels where you could really walk to the Anaheim. But I was good friends and still am friends with Wanda's kids, and they made sure they saved me a hotel room next door.
Okay.
So thank you. In those days when you could literally drag yourself out of bed and walk to the show. You're in the host. '89, I took the elevator to the show. '83, I'm sure I took the elevator to the show. '84, I was living 20 minutes from the Parsippany Aspen, so we drove each night to that. '85, the Disneyland Hotel. Great location for a show. $60 a night. I was mentioning Brad. We were talking about hotel rooms. I remember I paid $60 a night to stay at the Disneyland Hotel as a show rate.
You know why? I think that
Mike
was
Burkus.
a negotiated bargain by Mike Burkus.
Mike Burkus did it,
Because he
absolutely.
was one of us and he understood the mindset.
He also did the Dancing Waters thing or whatever it was.
He was a visionary in many ways. So hotel is a big problem at the National. If you're buying quantities of cards, the transportation especially is a problem. What would you do if you bought a bunch of cards and you're at the National? If I have too many to take back, I can leave them at the Beckett booth or...
You already did that once.
I know, but I'm saying, have you done stuff like that where you got too much to lug around? You have a lot of trusted friends, but is that a simple thing that other people should consider?
You always should consider, if you're traveling to the show, if you know somebody living in the area, work it out with them if they have room in their cars. Not everybody has room in their car or their truck to do that. Yeah. Some do. Beckett will have a truck. They have to plan for bringing cards back.
No, but here's the thing. What I learned from Beckett guys, they don't drive a truck up there. They use third party. So basically, they're speccing it out based on how many cubic feet or whatever they need for their machinery and the cards and all that stuff in the safe. And so it's just by weight. I thought they were going to have a partially empty truck coming back, and so there'd be no problem. No, they had to add in something. So I'm in their debt. I am the founder, but still, they did me a nice turn there a few years.
They did you a solid, as the expression goes.
Did me a solid.
And I think knowing how to bring stuff back is definitely something important.
Depending on how you collect. Modern collector that's bringing his Zion case, his Pelican case, you just fill it up and you're done. That's not me. That's not you.
I was very happy. The last time I went to the Chicago National, I did very well. And there was only one card because it helped a charity, and it was from whatever Darren Ravel's charity was. And he was signing cards, and I collect hobby signed cards. That was the only card the whole show I paid more than 50 cents for. Otherwise, I filled up basically what I brought back, never paying more than 50 cents a card.
Okay, got a new question for you.
Yeah.
If I asked you what was the best national? I'm not going to ask you that. I'm going to ask what was your favorite national, and they're probably not the same answer.
My national is the first one I ever went to, 83, which had at the time probably the single greatest day in the history of the hobby, which was Friday. I was working with my good friend Mel Solomon. I had a quarter of his table. By Thursday night, I had already paid for my whole trip. I think it opened up to dealers or whatever at 9 in the morning, and the show ended at 9 o'clock that night. And I think I finally got a breath at 7:30 at night. That's how busy it was. Buses were coming from Detroit. They were coming from Cleveland. The collectors were coming from all around the area. Chicago was such a big area, which is why I always tell people, and I used to go back and forth with John Brogy on this all the time, why aren't we just in Chicago every year? Which in my opinion is still the best place for the NSCC. John always said we need to move it somewhere just so it doesn't become a big regional show.
Which Chicago already had.
But Chicago already had.
So we started out, it was LA near the airport, right. And then it was Detroit at St. Louis, and then Chicago, and then Parsippany.
Correct.
And then 85 was back in
Anaheim. I was back in Anaheim.
And 86 was Arlington.
And I went up to my room in 85. I was working for a company, and there's maybe 5 Google references to them. If you ever Google it, Sports Information Database, a company 20, 25 years ahead of their
its time. Yep.
Okay. Hard stop.
You were the perfect employee.
Oh, I was. It was a great company.
But it was ahead of its time. Yeah.
It was too far ahead of its time. And there was some corporate stuff, and the people who were going to fund us pulled the plug literally while I was on the plane to the 85 National. I get a phone call. I go up to my room. There's a message on my phone. I found out 3 minutes before the show began, I didn't have a job to come home to.
Wow.
That was the most interesting national I ever had because I was not in a good mood that whole show. A lot of these are already documented in my Sports Collectors Daily column, so you can read about this stuff.
Is that the only time you've been in a bad mood at the National? I'm wondering.
Oh, that was the whole weekend. There's other times I'm in a bad mood, but usually they go away. That was not going away because that was the perfect job for me. And at the time, I'm in my 20s. I'm working 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., which sounds terrible, but those were great hours. And the way I was structured, I was working Monday to Friday. I basically had a 3-day weekend every week because if I'd get up at 10 o'clock Saturday morning, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and basically all day Monday. Yeah. So I had 3 days every weekend, basically. So it was a great job, but we were just too far ahead of our time. But finding out you don't have a job to come home to 3 minutes before a national begins is not what I'd recommend as the best news you'll get all weekend.
If 83 is your favorite one, do you attribute that to the Golds or Bruce and Benita Painter, or I don't know who was running the show then? They had an association.
It was just a perfect storm. With the way things were going, we were busy. And when you're making money and you're busy, guess what? It's a great combo. I've never seen so many people at a show. I had done the Montclair State shows, which were good. This was the Montclair State show to a multiple. And I had been to Willow Grove a few times. So this was better than Willow Grove.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in 83, I'm still known in the hobby from the annual books that I'd done. I'd done a bunch of them by that time, but there was no monthly magazine until 84. In fact, it didn't exist at the 84 National in Parsippany. That was when I was finalizing either go or no go. And if I was going to go, was I going to do it with somebody or do it by myself? By that time, I was in Dallas, so I wasn't Ohio anymore. And 83 was pivotal.
I heard in 84, you actually went and talked to B.A. Murray at the show because B.A. was doing a really good publication with Paul Marchand called Card Values Review. They did some really good in-depth work on the Bowman sets and all the series. And you said, I'm going to go for it.
So I talked to Frank and Vivian Barning. Yeah. They wanted me to consider doing a price guide insert into their newsprint regular publication that was highly respected. But I just thought, I'm not sure how that would work. We were talking about whether I'd get a royalty or share in some profits or circulation increased. Finally, I just said it needs to stand on its own. I'm either going to make it or not make it. And it was the right decision now as I look back, but it wasn't an easy decision. I had great respect for them. BA and Paul, same thing. But at some point, I just said, I've been doing this stuff with Denny. What a great business partner to have. But it was just time for me to go on my own. And being in Dallas turned out to be, other than you and Al Muir and Grant and some of the people we hired and brought in from around the country, many of our employees were from the Dallas area. And that turned out to be a great place to hire quality employees.
Other than editorial people and price guide people, because a lot of editorial people, Mike Payne came from outside, Gary Santinello came from outside. But there were some internal Dallas people. Pepper Hastings, basically your third employee,
backyard,
Dallas. He's a Dallas person all the way through.
Absolutely.
And there was enough card people that weren't that far away, but getting it going, you hired people outside. B.A. Murray was your first card person hire. You understood instinctively what a special time it was at that time working at Beckett. We understood just how special the time was.